T minus 50 seconds. T minus 40 seconds. T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello. Welcome. Welcome everybody to another episode of Lunchin with Lisa. As you all know, we come on every Thursday, 7 to 8, and we're excited like we are every Thursday for our next guest. And I'm going to introduce our guest, but first, before we do that, I wanted to remind everybody that we're live on Facebook and YouTube. So I want you to subscribe, like, share, love. Okay, it's still time for you to tell everybody to tune in, and please comment. We can see your comments and we can talk to you as we interview. But I wanted to first, before we get started, to do what I do at the beginning of most of my shows is a just because moment. I'm kind of a just because girl. So I feel like sometimes just randomly I want to support people and their products or whatever is going on. So I wanted to do a quick shout out to Alika Melson. She has a book that came out recently, and it's called Conquering Co-Parenting. And I'm hoping that, let me see if I can get this in the screen, but I'm hoping that I'm able to get her on and do an interview with her. But I think that co-parenting is such an important thing. It's a difficult thing. I am a stepmom. So I want to give a shout out to Alika Melson on her book. And you all check it out. I think it's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So please, check out her book and hopefully stay tuned because I'll have her on for a show. So I wanted to introduce our guest. We are excited to have him on. So what I'll do is introduce him, tell a little bit about him, and then we're just going to get into some conversation. So Nigel Birch Jr. is a writer, poet, host, and mental health advocate with a new vision for love. He's a melting pot of cultural experiences, which can be heard and seen through his artistry. His depth, passion, and introspection is felt on every stage and page he touches. Nigel writes from the standpoint of love and identity, bringing a new perspective to loving yourself and others. He's a wordsmith with clever wordplay, metaphors, similes, breadth of experiences, and passion that provides audiences with truth, inspiration, and optimism. He's a one-of-a-kind entertainer that feeds your soul. Nigel's aim is to inspire and empower people to rediscover, reconnect, and re-image what is and what can be available to us. Love. His purpose, to show people that love is always available, present, and exists in all of us. His vision is for all to freely express, share, and spread every facet of love, whether it's eros, phileus, and I'll get you to explain these too, or agape, for self and or others, a revolution shift in consciousness. His mantra, every day is Valentine's Day, and it's used to encourage more people to embark on a journey that exemplifies all that is love. His mission, to use various artistic mediums such as poetry, books, theater, film, and music to express, share, and empower others through creative expression to find their way back to love. Welcome, Nigel D Birch Jr. to Lunchin with Lisa.
I love that.
Welcome. It's
I'm
such a pleasure to have you. Yes.
Oh, thank you for having me into your home.
I am going to give you a little background real quick on how I found someone, I can't remember who it was, but there was someone that said if you haven't seen some of Nigel's work, you all really need to, reach out and take a listen. So I said, well, let me see. And I think the first piece I saw was Black Woman, which was powerful. And I was like, okay, I gotta get in touch with him and see if he can come and just talk about, how he even got into this. Your wordplay is ridiculous, okay? And I'm a writer, so I just love everything you do with words and phrases. And we will talk a little bit because I wrote down several. I said I was going to write down a few, and I caught myself writing down every single one of them, and pulling something from it that I like. But tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got involved with, this mixtape messaging and all of this.
Wow. Okay. So hello, everybody out there. First and foremost, I started writing humble beginnings when I was young. My dad's actually a writer.
Okay.
And he's, before he got into business administration, he wanted to get into journalism, but he was always fond of poetry and words. And it's funny, every year he would write me a poem for each milestone, each birthday I would have. And it was just from me just observing him and, his style of writing that I picked it up. And, I'd write to him, he'd write to me, and that came like a, language arts, a writing exercise that we've always done. So it was always in my system. I've always been a person that has been able to talk. My parents always gave me free range to voice my opinion. I was never silent. So the voice and the confidence to speak was always something that was part of my upbringing. So tying those two things together, it was, it was just, for me, it was, I didn't see the purpose. Purpose meaning I didn't know that was going to be my driver in life until later on, but it was always something that I always did. I was always writing, journaling, and also introspection has always been a big part of my life. Introspection, reflection, I've been always a deep thinker that way. So, again, I didn't realize how introspection was going to tie into wordplay, and wordplay would turn into purpose, and then But so with me growing up, I've always been a deep thinker, always writing. I have the background because of my father. And then I used to go in Atlanta. So I was raised in Toronto, moved to Atlanta when I was 16, 17. Last 2 years of high school I did, I was out there. And then when I got into the art scene, I spent a lot of time with Apache and in just the underground scene of poetry and live music. And I've always had a thing for live music. So it's interesting how the music merged too. My dad, again, you'll hear about him a lot. My parents are very influential part of my life. My dad used to take me to concerts at a very young age. Like parents had me at 23, 24, so I was his sidekick. So we went. The first concert I went to was Luther Vandross at 7 years old.
Really? Okay.
And he's being thrown on the stage. I'm like, what is going on? Like, this is ridiculous. Luther, he's a beast, but we in Buffalo, and the closest aligning state. So I would, from Luther to BBD to Solo to Escape to you name it. I was always Tony. I was always going there with him. So the live experience sat with me. So even when I came to Atlanta, that was something that resided with me, the live music scene. And then on the live music scene was a Wednesday, open mic was on Sunday. So I would partake, I would be there, but I didn't have enough guts to go on stage because I've never been on stage before in that capacity. Being on a stage in front of people is different than talking in front of your family. So I remember going to the Apache one night and just to test my mettle. And this is where you have that story where, your first failure, your loss. And I had two pieces and it was an open mic. And I was so nervous that I was just drinking wine. And I went on the stage and I just choked. I was like,
oh no.
They didn't boo me, but they were like, this guy, get off the stage, man. Get off the stage. And then I had another poem in my pocket. So I said, I'm going to try again. And I got it out, but they didn't really receive that because of the way I don't know.
first time, right?
The first time they're already like, man, you ain't ready for the stage yet. So that was my, Will Smith run away from Philly story. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to revisit the stage again. And so I just did my thing. I, went to school, just did the regular stuff. I went to school for criminal justice, and I got into child and youth work when I got back into Toronto. So I spent like 10 years in the States, 10 to 12 years, I think 12 years. And then I moved back to Toronto. And then I got into child and youth work, and child and youth work sent me down an interesting path, because then I was very clear on my intention of how I want to pour passion to the world. I started to learn about, oppressive frameworks and LGBTQ communities. I learned about just, of course, racialized communities, as well as mental health was a big thing for me. That became very apparent of how important that was in my walk. Those are things that stood out to me. But during this time, I've always had an affinity for love. So love has always been from a very young age. I was into books like Men Are From Mars. So whatever the divine.
Really?
Yeah, it was weird. Like why was I reading Men Are From Mars? Why was I reading The Road Less Traveled in 9th and 10th grade?
Right.
High school. Like there was no reason for this need for application or scholarship in that area, but I was always drawn to that. So those books were always present as I'm going through my academia and all the things that I'm growing through. And so when I was now I'm getting to child and youth practice. I became a child and youth practitioner, and pretty much just working with specific marginalized communities, or just any community that is struggling in some capacity. Autism kids, anything that you can imagine under the sun. Any unique population that needs support, I'm there. But what stood out to me was the mental health piece. And I also work in the hospital too. So I'm able to see, specific illnesses and how they work, and how those things affect even your love experience. So I found that as I'm going through my learning, I'm also deep diving into my reflective practice about my experiences. How does mental health fit into that? How does my love experience fit into that? How do I look at racialized people? How do I look at my identity? All these things start to swirl together. And in addition to that, I'm going through my own love cycles and learning how to love and hurt and find some levels of understanding with me as an individual, growing as a man, things I don't like about manhood, the things I have to change about them, how I perceive women, how that changes over time. So all these things become a melting pot of experiences that I want to challenge myself to grow through and evolve. So evolution has always been a big part of my process. Like often I have a business that I have with a close friend of mine called Manifest Black, and it's about growth, evolution, healing. And that's those things, I would say those core principles are things I always lean on. I'm always talking about growth. Love to me is growth in some capacity. So
everything you're doing kind of ties into that. I mean, the mental health, the love, the deep. So it's all, actually, you probably realize that it's happening, but you're putting it all together.
Absolutely. And for me, it was so important, especially putting out material, because I'm big on, I don't really like being called one particular thing, because I think that there's a stigma or there's limitations when you say I'm a poet. So I want to make sure that I had a message. I always saw myself as a messenger of some sorts. So I always want to make sure when I'm delivering, whether it's mixtape messages, whether it's Black woman, that the depth in it comes from my soul experience, and we're trying to create an outcome of change. And we're trying to not just Black woman, you're pretty, this, that, and the other. Let's talk about what's really plaguing our women. Let's talk about how we can improve that and how we can lift them and show that in the depth of the presentation of the work. So that all came from obviously me gathering this experience and being on this planet for 37 years, and I will be 38 in 2 days. So I am very excited about living in
I know that's right. Oh, well, that's not the only thing. We'll get to the other celebration going on. But you got a lot to celebrate. That's right. Well, and you can tell in the work I've been, posting the whole time about the work that you have. And like I said, I've sent people to your site, and your work is so powerful. And that's why I pulled out a few things from some of the work you did, the way you put the words together, because I guess, and I'm coming from a writer's perspective too. I was an English major, so it's like words mean everything to me. And when I was going through each of yours, I was like, okay, it's the way that you put the words together And I'm all about the message as well.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping. Even by bringing you on, I was like, well, maybe somebody's going to listen. I know you have a huge following, but maybe somebody's going to listen to this and think something different than they thought all this time because of the way you said it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love it.
I fell in love with everything you do. The Black woman is what drew me in.
Mhm.
But then I saw things like I listened to some of the standards.
Yeah.
That one of them. I listened to Levitate.
Yes.
And then there was Devotion had quite a
Yes.
bit that I like. I love the way you put things together. Like Sharif and I were actually talking before we went live, and in the standards piece, something that may step on toes, but it was so real. And the way you said it, what you said was sometimes the one you find ain't looking for you.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I don't know how much realer you can get.
Right.
But how did you, I mean, and you shared a little background about how you, where it comes from.
Mhm.
But then I guess when you were going through relationships and things like that, it probably just enhanced all of this.
Of
So
course.
what drew you to starting to put them on mixtapes and
Mhm.
just developing this whole movement? I mean, because you hear women all the time saying every day is, like Valentine's Day,
Yeah.
and that being your mantra is like, okay, so some brothers are mad at you right now because like you messing up.
You messing up the play, brother. Brother, you messing up my whole vibe. You know,
Right.
I can't do no more flowers and teddies. I gotta
Right.
right, yeah. I hear you. I hear yeah, so there's a couple things. One, people ask me the number one question is, when are you going to speak for the brothers? And I have a strong fellowship with men as well. I have a close relationship. Everything I always look at the seed comes from my mother and father. I have a very close relationship with both. But I felt in this season, my purpose and my mission is to be an example of how a man can lift a woman. And what I've realized in lifting and being proactive and selfless in doing that, women have responded with lifting me and covering me. And I think it's important for men to understand, especially Black men. I understand that we both are dealing with a heavy plight, and oppression is prevalent for both of us. But I don't like to play oppression Olympics with Black women.
Okay.
So my thing is that if you are proactive in covering your Black woman, she will be proactive in covering you, just because she's going to see your leadership and how you do that. If you want to complain and say to yourself, I can't do this, and then now you're in opposition to Black women, you're going to meet the same resistance. So in writing, I always spoke from a place of how can I represent and model what should be the voice of a man to a woman, but also in speaking in that voice, making sure the content is deep enough so women understand that what I'm trying to do is elevate them from a place of out of discouragement to a place of elevation.
Okay.
So that's how every piece starts and finishes for me. I know it does step on toes, and because first of all, which is a good thing, because I need to challenge the brothers, and often, and the sisters as well, because I think more of the challenging of the conversation of both comes when people actually hear me talk in conversations like this. And because there is a call to action for us both to get back to love. So I don't want to make it seem like I never want to come down on the men to the point where I'm trying to leverage to get some type of clout for my brand. So I think it's important to understand that every day's Valentine's Day is for both people. We want to see Black love elevate to a higher frequency. But even with the conversation about the writing, what also I have an advantage of is talking to a lot of women of color. I've always had close women friends that have unpacked with me even before I even started picking up the pen to take on the journey. And as I even I've gone on this journey, I've met more women that I have never met before that are sharing their experiences. So that also feeds the pen, feeds the information to me about what they're happening, seeing the themes that many women are saying. So I'm saying to myself, this has to be true if I'm seeing a collective of women saying this together. And then also I look at things that I love. I love hip hop, and I look at how misogyny plays in those spaces, how machismo or machoism plays in those spaces, and I always try to have a counter for what the narrative is being pushed out into the world, especially for our people. We see a lot of hypersexual or hypermasculine images or imagery in music, everything that affects our senses. So I'm always trying to counter that with another narrative, so we can create our own narrative that speaks to the positivity of what we're trying to create in our space. So. Okay. And as being a wordsmith, and enjoying wordplay, I'm looking at those guys as my contemporaries and saying, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do for the love experience. I'm going to talk about it, not make it corny, and give something that is valuable that people can say, you know what, did he just say that? But it all relates back to the love experience. So
yeah, you just take it to, and I can hear it in everything you do. You take it to another level. I like the way you said you like hip hop, but you just try to counteract that, because sometimes I think that's what they're trying. That's kind of the message they're trying to give, but it comes off very crass, cold.
Yeah.
There's no love in it. It's just, it's so surface. Absolutely. And when I read some of your pieces, it's kind of like he's talking about the same thing, except he actually goes down to the seriousness of the connection as opposed to the surface. So yeah, I see what you're saying.
And I'm glad you got that, because I think that's, one thing, and I know you had mentioned earlier, you want to talk about the
different types of love. Right.
And I think it's important, because the first thing is, obviously there's a lot of end results in what I'm writing, but I also try to, in pieces, splash a little bit of, why, trauma is important to talk about. Emotional health is important to talk about. And I'd never want to gloss over that love is a trial and tribulation things. There will be those things involved in your experiences, and love is going to be something that has to be looked at from different vantage points, whether it's philias, eros, or agape. You have to know that there's going to be hills and climbs within those experiences, and Absolutely. Don't allow just having one of those have the ebbs and flow stop you from continuing to push forward in your experience of love. So I think I try to just dig deeper than just giving you fluffy words that are going to sound sexy. I want people to have a conversation and even challenge me on it, and we can have another discussion about how you look at the experience. So
it's great conversation. I've always loved conversations about relationships and love and feelings and just deep thoughts and things like this. So this is like right up my alley, because I was like, I think we need more of this.
Yeah,
I think it got pushed aside a lot of times, like, oh yeah. But if you listen with a different ear, you really can receive so much from what you're saying. Even the fact, when I was reading about your writings and your mission and things, the fact that you even brought up the 3 different types of love, because I don't even think people know the different types, what friendship love is, and the difference, and that in a relationship you can feel several of them in the same relationship. So that's why relationships are so rough, because you're being hurt with the friendship one and the love one and the Christian one. All of it's all tied up.
It's all tied up.
So you're a mess when all of that hurts, right?
That's a real entanglement right there.
Yes. Well, look, I'm gonna bring up another in the one devotion that you did. I mean, like I said, your wordplay with his mind's favorite snack. And women don't think about this, but when you hear it, you're like, okay, and it's not sexual. It's just a deep way of like embracing the connection. You put, he loves, I love this one. He loves the way, he loves the way, what did I write? Something about the value look. He loves the way value looks on you.
Well, yeah.
That was powerful right there. I was just like, oh my goodness. I think I listened to Amazement, and you said, I want your love in chronological order. Okay, so
come on now.
Can you explain what you meant with that?
Yeah. So oftentimes we look at love through romantic love, and I think that's important. Okay, so what happened to, let's just keep it 100 funky. What happened to friendship love anymore? Like, how you used to meet somebody courting, you would date them, or you would build a friendship, and then you would
Exactly.
proceed to romance, and then you would go into developing what we know as agape or unconditional love. I think we mix and match the process, and I think it set us back because we don't have enough patience or self-restraint or discipline to go through this order. And why I said I want your love in chronological order is because when we take the time to do it the right way, and I shouldn't say right or wrong, when we take the time to do it from that point of view, I think it tastes so much better. It feels so much better. We can actually say, you know what, I work for this.
Yes.
So, and again, everybody has a different approach to how they want to enter these three love experiences that we speak of. But I feel when we do it in chronological order, there is less confusion. And when there's confusion, God is not in the fold. So I think it's very important that we take our time, especially if we really want that love experience, to say, you know what, I'm going to take this one slow. I'm going to do it in chronological order. We're going to do it the right way.
I love it. When I heard that, I got it. And it was like, and I know everybody doesn't think like I do, but I never thought about it with those words because it was, I guess because I was thinking it's my order of things. But I do agree with you that we've lost the friendship of the relationship, which is why things go so awry so fast.
Absolutely.
And why it's so interchangeable. Like, okay, on to the next, because no friendship has been built. So you're missing that connection. I loved everything about it. I think what you said, I love the ending of that one where you said, I want to get to know you better. We got time.
We got time.
And it was the we got time part that was like, it's the time.
That's it. That's it.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. I would love to, even if some of the guests who are watching have had a chance to go out and see some of his work, please, post in the comments the ones that you liked. I looked at my, and I liked the comment of not here for entanglements. We came to be aligned. I mean, just powerful. He gave now, and I hope I wrote this right, but you said he gave your integrity hourglass curves.
Come on.
That now I was just like, look, this is the stuff. And I think even with men, women, I was like, but here's the thing. I think because we miss some of that friendship and the deep part of love, that when some young women, hear this, they don't know how to embrace it. You know what I'm saying? So they don't know what to do with it. But it's like those, I think, secretly, it's like, I know that that makes you feel, and it wasn't about love feelings. It was about just empowering you to embrace your own self-worth. All of that. It was just so deep. And I'm hoping that people will go out there and check your stuff out, because it was very empowering, very inspiring. I think I listened to Hindsight too.
That's
and that was more of a kind of on the hip hop with some of the language, but you said, when you puff past, better luck next time, because I mean it's just that simple.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this with some of your because your wordplay, like I said, is crazy. So what kind of feedback have you gotten from the fellas when they listen? Because a lot of times, even when it comes to like romantic movies, even if I tell my husband, I want to watch Notebook is one of my favorites, and he's like, oh, that's so mushy, it's a chick flick, that kind of thing. But what kind of feedback did you get from this? Because it's powerful on both sides.
It's the brothers have been good to me, and I think part of it is, like I said, I study metaphors, similes, and alliterations. I'm big on literary devices, the same that I study, same from hip hop, and I think my big thing was I didn't want to be corny in the presentation. I want to be a real man's perspective, but in the same way, talking truth that is going to step on toes, because sometimes truth is a hard thing to digest. So the men have been, they showed a lot of love. The mixtape, a lot of people reposted and said, man, that's really, really dope. Of course, I've had a couple like DMs where men have questioned the integrity of what I was speaking about. I was open for like some verbal sparring and having a conversation, because the big thing about me is it's, you know, I know I'm doing it from a place of truth. Like I'm not,
Mhm.
you know, because I think the perception is, oh, he's trying to get girls, this, that, and the other. But I think this is my life and my experiences, and I also speak from a place where I wasn't the man that I am today. So
Okay.
I'm also speaking to my younger self. I'm
Right.
not coming down at nobody, but except it's just me. It's myself looking at my reflection, my introspection in the mirror, and saying, brother, you've grown, but let's not act brand new. There was a time where you had to grow the heck up.
Yeah.
So because of that, and I think because I don't necessarily take shots at generalizing men, it's been overall. And I always say, if you don't feel that's you, then you're good. But if you
Right.
feel it hits you different,
Exactly.
then this might be some growth or some learning you got to go through before you can really digest what I'm trying to tell the world. Um,
Exactly. I mean, what you're saying in some of these, it's like I could see a guy wanting to give this to his sister. She's going through a hard
yeah, a
situation.
daughter, or
Why
yeah,
wouldn't you not agree with this message to your sister
absolutely.
in regards to it?
Right.
But I think people get in their feelings because, like you said, they either haven't grown yet or they did some things they're not proud of, and you kind of touching those toes.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, and that's all it is because they
It-
haven't quite got to
yeah,
understanding that, okay, this is what I did, and now I see where I should be. Because then you're kind of, the guys who are there, like, oh, this is deep. I mean, I need to get this mixtape and let her listen to this.
right. Like I can exactly. I can
Yeah,
apply that. You
absolutely.
know?
So tell me, what kind of, because I read hosting. So what kind of
Yeah.
things have you hosted in the past? How do
So,
you do that?
and it's funny because how I even got to the stage was I started a close friend of mine and a mentor, Dion Walcott. He did this thing called the Sneaker Design Project, which is it's a competition that was local. Now it's gone international, where people will have a sneaker and you have 20 minutes to draw an illustration. Great artists come out, they compete for a grand prize. But what happens in that night is it's almost like the shoe drawing is the mixer, and then after is the party. So I
Okay.
ended up being the host of that, and then it grew, and then we went from schools to venues of 400 to 500 people. So now I'm
Wow.
learning to get on that stage with the mic and freestyle and be in my element. And I'm like, okay. So and at this time I'm still writing, and then from there I started getting into theatrical acting, and then that's when I decided to hit the stage because I said I had enough reps in, and now the nerves are out. Let me
Right.
let me hit the stage. But yeah, so I hosted um, that. I've hosted auctions. I've hosted parties just for just as off of the reputation of the Sneaker Design Project. So that paved the way for me to now get into spaces where I can just rock a crowd. And
Okay.
okay, this is something I can do this. I can really rock with this. And then I said, well, how? But my the poetry was still calling me. It was like, you can do something more. There's something that you have to give to the world in front of this crowd that's more than just saying, hey, let's move to the left, move to the right. I see you. I got like, let's get busy.
Right.
But it helped because it helped in the removing the idea of the caricature of being a poet. Like when I go on, like, this is me. So this is what you're gonna get, even if I'm a poet. It's very personal versus trying to be suave and building this idea of what I'm
Right.
supposed to be. So I liked having those different facets because it allowed me to be true to myself, even in presenting to the world my content. So
Hmm.
yeah.
So do you travel with your hosting
Yeah,
or
yeah. Like Trinidad, we went to the islands, we stateside, different provinces.
wow. Okay.
We're moving, yeah, to
Oh,
different
that's
states.
a good thing because I
Yeah,
think what you're talking about needs to be out, needs to,
yeah,
yeah, contagious. Make it
yeah,
contagious. Make
uh,
people.
yeah.
I
Like,
love it. I mean, it didn't take but me to see one piece to want to see more
I
and to want to
appreciate
see more. It's hard to come off of Spotify because I was like, okay, I gotta go back to work. But I'm listening to these pieces and I'm like, okay, I'll go back later. Okay, I'll go back later. And
yeah,
it really draws you in. And it's the way that you talk about the situations, the experiences. So I know that you mentioned that you have a birthday coming up, but I know that you just released, was it yesterday or recently, you have a book coming out? Yes, yes. So tell
yeah.
us about, it's the memoirs of Mona.
Mona, yes,
Tell us
memoirs.
about your book.
Yes, memoir, moments of nostalgic awakening. And
Wow.
so pretty much just like the writing, what happened was I finished Memoirs of Mona, and I said, um, I wanted to get a business coach. And one thing I said is I didn't want to lose the momentum. So
Hmm.
that's how the mixtape messages came about. I said, I'm just going to start writing every day, not only to keep the pen sharp, but just so people know that I'm here. I'm putting out the book. So I would, after every post, I would say Memoirs of Mona coming soon. And then that changed to, I was like, wait a minute, I'm writing at 11:11 every night. Like I just started looking at the clock, and I'm like, I'm going to call this 11:11 mixtape messages because
Really?
yeah, it was just like, I'm always been a night owl, but I realized I'm writing around the same time, and God's delivering an amazing message. So I was like, I'm gonna start calling this 11:11 mixtape messages, and it started to catch on because everybody's very familiar with 11:11, and
Exactly.
I started rocking and rolling with that, and I called it mixtape messages because I'm very conceptual. So I do play. I'm a playwright as well. So when we did the play, I usually build around concepts, and that gives me the greatest metaphors, or I think the best produced work I have is from the creation of conceptual work. So, but with mixtape messages, it was just the delivery of thought. It was just something that I felt, an experience that I may have heard from someone I talked to, and I would write it. And
So we have real quick. I wanted to stop you. Somebody's asking. Actually, it's my dad. Do you do any writing workshops, speaking engagements for youth?
yeah, me and under Manifest Black, we do this thing called R&B, which is it's a writing workshop, which is helping those in the creative space how to get better at creative writing, and as well learn to get on the mic and feel confident with the delivery of their poetry. And so yes, we do it. And if there's
I would
something,
definitely. I will connect you all.
yeah, absolutely,
Definitely.
absolutely. And I think it's important. I was actually thinking about doing one of those for especially for Black men, just to unpack some of those emotions in a way that even if they feel like they're not a lyricist or a poet, there's a way to teach people how to write poetry.
And
Um,
he's a board member for a organization we had on the show called the 13th Man for young men. So
yeah,
I will definitely
let's
get you
connect.
connected with
Definitely, let's connect.
Dr. Bradford. Absolutely.
Okay, I love it. I love it.
Cool. Sorry for interrupting you, but yeah.
No worries, that was important. Yeah, but so yeah, that's I forgot where I was at. I was talking about the delivery. Oh yeah, we talked about the workshop, and then we talked about Memoirs of Mona, and I
Right.
was telling you. Uh, okay,
You was kind of
so,
giving me the concept of how you started with
oh yeah,
the mixtapes first.
mixed with messages, right? So the book was done a while ago. It's actually one of 7 books.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, and they're all will be entitled Memoirs of Something. Mona was important for me because I wanted to. I always, even when I started, the first time I got back on stage, I wanted to. It was a cathartic moment for me on stage because I wanted to purge my truth. So,
Okay.
I remember that was the first time I wanted to be completely honest, and I want to do the same thing with the book. So the book goes through 4 seasons, and then Mother Nature, which is specifically for elevating and lifting Black women or women in general. This one is less race based, I would say. It's just more just talking to love. But I have a book specifically for bronze women out of
Okay.
the 7. But this one is just going through 4 seasons, falling in love, which is typically the way we enter that experience, and then heartbreak, and then spring cleaning, which is self-love, and then we go into summer, which is when we find love. And then through all in all, once I understood that, I was able to, that's why I can speak to women the way I do.
Okay.
Not an scapegoat. It's just something that I reflect through my own walk, that I feel like I have enough love. I call it reserve love, to lift, where I don't need someone to love me back, and you can give it to me when you feel necessary, but for now, let me elevate you. And it's a transparent, introspective journey of truth, of things that I've realized in, like, even in winter. I'm talking about things that I saw in somebody or a woman, but then also things that I did wrong, which led
Okay.
to demise. And then we go into spring, which I love spring, because spring is like when you're just trying to figure it out
Fresh,
with yourself.
new.
Spring cleaning,
Right.
like you're just trying to get through it. And then I try to make contrasts, summer and falling in love. It's subtle, but in falling in love, I speak I'm writing from a standpoint of what I want to happen. Like, and
Right.
I've always said when we fall in love, we fall in love with the idea of where we're going to go more than what's actually happening. Oh, so we're going to have kids, we're going to get married, and we're our passion is driven by that idea of that possibility. But we don't know if that possibility is going to exist, but that's what's driving us to be intimate with our partner. But when you actually get into the season of summer, which is love, you actually have to dive in, commitment, communication. You have to wrestle with some of the things that you're insecure about. You have to heal. Like, those are things that force your hand on the growth process. So I want to contrast those two to, I show that agape and falling in love is completely different in how we approach it. And one is natural, it happens organically, and the other one takes a lot more work.
Right.
And you learn that. You learn the art of that application as you go through spring, because the best person to love is yourself. So in that,
absolutely,
you're able to give to someone else in that capacity. And then Mother Nature, or Queen Bee, is the last chapter, which is my favorite chapter, which is just all about just elevating the queens of the world. So
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to get a copy. So is this actually, because you said it's 7 books?
It's 1 of 7. So the first one is the only one that's out, but expect, just like there's tons of mixtape messages, there's a lot of content coming. So that's the one. I want people to sit on that, and I want to have conversations, hopefully come back on your show and talk about some of the pieces that really resonated. And the whole idea for the book is to shift the narrative and have hard to ask questions to yourself and say, you know what, can I challenge myself to be better in specific areas of our love experience, and go from there.
I think all of this and what you're doing, I know one of the things I always love to talk about, like I said, was relationships. And that's why this was so connecting to that, because I think that once we start to get a better grip on and learn how to nurture our relationships and just be more mature in our relationships, I think everything just will be such a wonderful, it's hard to explain, but it's like, y'all, so a lot of things that we go through, I think if we nurtured each other on a whole different, deeper level, that we wouldn't go through some of the things that we go through. You know what I'm saying? And the things you talk about in your mixtapes really speak to people's inner person.
I'm glad you see
I think it's absolute growth. I mean, you're just to people, to their spirit, on how, not just about like, and I didn't get the men bashing thing that men think sometimes. I got that you're just letting women know, when you're speaking to the woman, that whatever you've gone through, it doesn't mean that it was intentional. Things just don't happen, but you can still, you all right. We're going to get through this, and and you just be better the next time around for whatever happens, stronger, better. You would see the signs, so you walk away before it gets ugly or whatever. But absolutely powerful information. And I love the mission, the vision, your purpose, everything with this. And actually, you starting off at such a young age. It's a gift, because I'm thinking back when I was younger, young men were not thinking on that deep level. They weren't thinking this deep. I mean, every now and then your girlfriends, we're talking a little deep, but the guys are like, okay, that's way too heavy for me.
Yeah. No,
but yours is not even heavy. It's a lightness to it. It's not heavy.
Yeah. And then that's the easy. I mean, you don't want people to get lost, right? We want to have a conversation about that, and it's definitely trying to find the balance in that, because the mission, and never want to lose sight of what the intention of the purpose is, and it's to get us to, because in order to get, and that's the I guess the overall analogy is, love is a process of depth and pulling back the layers. So that's what I try to do with the poetry, is pull back the layers and start to ask these questions that we struggle to confront, or we're not even sure exist. Sometimes we don't even know that they exist until someone tells us, oh, okay, wow, I didn't even know that.
That's true. That's true.
That's part of that's been my lifelong process of just trying to dig deeper and grow.
So what is one of your favorite pieces? I mean, what is one of the works that stands out for you?
Black woman will probably be the biggest, and the reason why is just more of the conversations that I have with women. Like I remember the first time a woman inboxed me about Black woman, it really threw me off. Just she was saying this is the apology I never got, and
Wow.
she was crying, and I think, and just being in that moment of consoling someone that I don't even know, with I start to understand how that resonated with people. How Black Woman even came about was, there was no, it was such an organic process. I had no intention of writing a piece to say I want to do something for Black women. I had this opportunity to do this thing called the Black Diamond Ball, which is a pretty large event in Toronto, but it's a predominantly, I would say, an elitist or elite space where there's a lot of white patrons that come through there. So
Okay.
for me, I didn't even think about it. I'm like, I'm doing Black women. That's what I'm about to do. And it was about like 1,000 people in the audience, and I performed it, and I didn't expect anything of it. What's so funny is I sent the audio to my aunt, and she said, "This is it." And I'm like, "Right? What do you mean this is it?" She's like, "This is the one." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Trust me." And I wasn't taking off because I'm like, "That's my aunt. She's just telling me that it's good."
Right. That's family.
Just family, right? And then
Right.
I came off the stage, and the Black woman said, "Thank you." And they weren't talking about how good of a performer I was. They're saying, "Thank you for speaking up for us."
The
And I'm like,
message.
"Whoa." I was like, "That's crazy. So you're telling me that people don't speak up for Black women in these spaces?" And she's like, "No." And it was not one, not two, but about 20 women said the same thing. It was almost like it was an act of courage that I did. That's what set me on the journey. I was like, okay, so I started looking up, are there people, artists that are overtly speaking for Black women? Are there people opening their mouth, using their tongue to say I love Black women? And come to find out they weren't. There wasn't any. So my call to action was to encourage men to use your tongue. I don't want to hear about it behind closed doors. I don't want to hear about it in theory, because when you say things out loud, you have to, and you have to hold yourself accountable. Even if you're shooting the is, you have
Right.
to deal with the fact that you said it out loud. So guess what? If I'm speaking proudly about Black women, and someone sees me out here parading with somebody else, a white woman or whatever it is, they may say, okay, whatever, but they're holding me to my words. And if you're who you are and you're walking in that light, you have to hold yourself accountable. With whatever that is, whether
Right.
it's Black woman or whatever it is, when you say something and you're on a platform where people now hold you to that, then it puts the pressure on, and I'm okay with it because this is my truth.
Right.
So that's what really started the movement. And I also did it on International Women's Day because I felt like Black women weren't being represented. So the reason why, like I said, it was so important is because the plethora of women that started coming to me, not solely, and that's the thing, they're not coming to me for advice. They're just coming to me to say, this is how I felt when I heard it. This is what the healing I got from it. And I was like, wow, this is a powerful, and I could just sit and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And that led to more experiences, that led to more mixtape messages. And then it
The
kind of,
Black, I'm telling you, when I heard it, the timing, I guess, is everything, because doing this COVID thing, and that's when it came to me. I don't know when you put it out, but I was listening to this at a time when things were going on with this, with the
yeah,
racial injustices and things, and
yeah,
it really
Brianna.
was an issue about Black women not kind of being not heard, or just not recognized. And I mean, your Black woman piece spoke to all of that.
Yes,
Powerfully. It was moving. And I do feel sometimes that, I think as a Black woman that sometimes we kind of get, I don't know, it's kind of like sometimes we feel like that because we're viewed as strong or whatever, that a lot of times, and this is not even about Black women, but just people in general, most people
right,
who are viewed as strong, they're usually kind of pushed aside because people assume you got this, you don't need me. So you're kind of not, they go for the underdog. They go for the one who thinks that you need, that they need you. So you don't pay attention to the one who's strong, because the assumption is they don't need anybody. They don't need to be told that. You already know what you're worth. So you don't need me to tell you that. But it spoke to, even those strong women, it's like, because I never, my cousin had said something on one of the shows about how he was proud of what I was doing. And I thought about the fact that you rarely hear it. I mean, I think because people just automatically assume, you're doing a good job or whatever. So they never say it, but the actual, in reality, it needs to be said.
Exactly.
Even if you know it, it needs to be said.
It needs to be said
out loud.
Out loud, and
in front of somebody else. Just say it.
Just say it. I love you. I love you, Black woman. I love you. And it doesn't have to be, no one say you have to do it like I'm out here doing it. Say it to your mom, say it to your aunt, say it to your sister. Enough.
Just because,
Because that's they deserve it. And I think that's and I think the other piece about that, which becomes the investigation process for the men, is, we live through Eurocentric ideals, which tell us that we should be as a protector and provider. And I think that men can lead emotionally and spiritually as well. And I think that once they understand that, there's sometimes is a toggle for power in spaces with Black women. What Black women are doing exceptionally well right now, especially in white collar spaces. And what happens is sometimes your woman may make more. She may be in a position where that piece of her, if you define yourself only through the financial means, then you may be intimidated because you're defining yourself as a man through that one facet. But as you grow, you learn to see that you're also an emotional being, you're also a spiritual being, and you can add value to anybody. Strong, weak, the toughest person in the world still needs support. They still need to be lifted. And so I think it's, that reflection is also about the work that we have to do within ourselves. And I always talk about it. It always comes back to ourselves. But yeah, Black women, have gotten this they've been stamped with too strong, I'm angry. But I think a lot of that conversation comes down to, are you really listening to her story? Like, anger comes from somewhere. It doesn't just melt to the Black women just wake up and they're just, I'm angry. Even if and I'm just saying that because the reality is a lot of times the Black woman is not even angry. So it's like,
that's true.
Even if she is, ask yourself why, investigate. And I think, like I told you, that's a part of one thing that from, scholarship or going to school that I've learned to look at oppressive frameworks, the lens, from a more open-minded, because I have blind spots. So that's helped me in how I look at women. My aunt also she's also a teacher. I have two aunts, so I've always go to them to challenge my language of how I'm speaking about women, because my gaze, there's certain things I can't see. And even before, I didn't realize that there's certain things that I couldn't fully understand, because for one, I wasn't asking the questions, and two, because I'm just a man, I can't see things through how a woman's lens is. So just being careful with that, because sometimes if we're not listening, you can't learn if you're not listening to women. And a lot of times we're not sitting and talking to our women, going back to the friendship piece, to say, how could I really understand where she's coming from? Just sit there and be quiet. Just listen. Don't try to find a solution. Just understand where she's coming from.
Yes.
And then you have a conversation and say, oh, well, I never knew that's how you felt. So there's always a lot of assumption about how we see Black women, opposed to really sitting down and listening. And even if,
oh my goodness, this is so powerful. Just keep going.
And I think it's important for us to decipher when sometimes we misinterpret an attack for a learning opportunity.
Okay.
So an example, and I'm going to come back to the Black woman, is I get inboxed often by white women saying, why do you speak about Black women this way? So now there's two approaches to this. I can say, what the hell are you talking about? Or I can use it as a learning experience to understand the language and what she's asking without taking it on. So I think sometimes there's transference of how a Black woman may feel about a situation she's dealt with men. She'll say, Black men did this, did the other. That, for one, that may not be you, but still listen to the experience so you can figure out, okay, let me understand, because when you start to get defensive, you miss the message.
That's true.
Time, practice, just learning through my own experiences, I've gotten to that place. But that's the challenge we face, is sometimes we're not really taking the time to listen to one another speak. And that goes both ways. Sometimes I think even when men are speaking their truth, a woman may say, forget that, because I've dealt with this. And they're hearing him talk, but they're hearing his story through the lens of someone she's dated. So there's a little bit of triggering there. And then now it's like there's hostility. It's like, how are we going to talk then? How are we going to unpack
Exactly.
and share our truths with one another?
Yes, that is so, you're resonating with me because I have my own book called The Power of Shut Up. And it wasn't just about women. It really was about me learning to shut my mouth.
Right.
Because I think we don't listen to each other. We're always on ready to respond. And actually, and part of that is addressing exactly what you were saying, that, sometimes when I was speaking, he was actually translating it to something very different. It wasn't my intention, but
Right.
I still had to take the bigger road, the higher road, and say, okay, so let me be quiet and think about how I'm saying this, because a lot of times we like to say, well, that's not what I meant, but if it's how it's received, then you still have to deal with that, because people receive based on their experiences, not yours. So, you could say something totally different, mean something different, and they're totally offended and upset and everything. And you're like, I didn't mean for all of that. But then you have to step back and say, okay, explain it, but not with anger and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And shutting up is just necessary on all ends sometimes, because you can't hear if you're talking. So,
So
oh
true.
my God, this is connecting on so many levels. We could talk hours on this kind of stuff.
That's what I said. I told you I'm coming back.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to come back, because and look, we had a couple of commercials to do that we'll get in, and hopefully you don't mind going a little bit over. I want to do one of those commercials and then come back and tell people how they can get in touch with you, and follow you, and then we're gonna run one more and we'll come back and just figure out actually, I wanted to mention a couple of other sections that you wrote about real quick before we say goodbye.
Sure.
This has been so powerful.
It's been great.
So we're going to pay, as Shariva told me to say, we're going to pay a couple of bills real quick, and then we're going to come back and find out how you all can get in touch with Nigel.
Absolutely.
So welcome back. And I want Nigel, please tell everybody how they can connect with you. I know I've been on Spotify many times, but your Facebook page, but let them know how they can get in touch with you and follow you.
Yeah, so my hashtag on Instagram is Nigel Birch is EDXVD. The same for Facebook. Spotify, it's Nigel Birch. My website is Nigel Birch is EDXVD. So those are the three main places you'll find me most of the time, or four, because I have Spotify in there.
And you share a lot of your pieces on your Facebook page.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to do as much because I find there's a lot more engagement on Facebook. But so yeah, definitely. I mean, and I'll also same Nigel at Nigel Birch is edxvd.com is my email address if you have any personal things you want to ask or anything you want me to take part of. But yeah, those you will find me there consistently.
And your website, because you actually you have t-shirts and your book.
Yes, absolutely. So if you want something specifically as far as the apparel, because we're working on the back end to tighten that up, you can hit me up on you can DM me or inbox me if there's anything that you like. And I did say the website, right?
I'm not sure, and we're actually going to share everything too on our page.
Yeah.
Yeah, give them the website one more time.
The website is Nigel Birch is edxvd.com.
Okay. So what I'm going to have Shariva do one more time, and then we're going to come back. And I have a question I want to ask you before we say goodbye. Okay. But we're going to play one more commercial to pay another bill, and then we're going to come right back.
Okay. Sounds good.
Saving My Pockets was founded by Shariva Smith, where she tells you all the latest sales, all the greatest couponing tricks, hacks, and places to go find the half price items, buy two, get one free, even flash sales. You don't want to miss it. Even the biggest discounts out here on the streets. So make sure you join that Facebook group, Save in My Pocket.
So before we say goodbye, this has been absolutely amazing. And yes, you will definitely be back. I wanted you to, out of all the messages, because all of your work is so powerful in your messages, what is the biggest message that you want to give to everybody in regards to love, which is really your ultimate mission, regardless of what type it is? What would be your message to everybody going forward? And I say this because the world is in a crazy place and we're going through so many different things at one time. So I do realize that people are unbalanced. They don't know what to say. They don't know what to feel. They don't know how to express themselves and not get in trouble because everybody's angry. So we just give a message to people of where you think we need to go going forward with everything we're dealing with.
I think specifically to what you're saying, we have to get better at, and I'm working on it, surrendering to the process, trusting the process. And like you said, allowing those things to, I'm a big meditator. So allowing yourself to feel those feelings, those thoughts without personalizing them too much. And realizing that during this time, this is a good time to realize you can't control anything, but that's where the seed of spirituality is you have an opportunity to sit and allow God to do what he has to do, the divine step into that. But I would say trust and allow your process to be, and allow growth to occur naturally. I mean, that's the biggest thing for me, this like going through this period, is I've realized that we all struggle with bouts of control and wanting things to happen when they do. There's been so many setbacks during COVID and this period, this pandemic, where we're starting, we're going, we're starting, we're going.
Right.
And if you get too lost in that, you can literally go crazy. So I'm learning to see what the message in that, and what I received is allow the process to be and take it one day at a time. So that would be my message specifically for COVID. If we're talking love, it would be love every day like it's your last. And what that looks like is find different ways to initiate growth with yourself, dive into yourself, develop a habit, daily routines can definitely lift your spirit. So yeah, that would be my main message. I know it was long and drawn out, but
it was perfect. And I'll add to that and say, go out there and get his book. I
got this too. Don't
his
forget.
mixtapes.
I got the scroll. The Black Woman Scroll is here. I know.
Oh my gosh, what is this?
This is the Black Woman Scroll. This is the words to Black woman. This is a scroll.
Really?
Yes, it's been there. Listen, I mean, the amount of people that inbox me for this, and I've started selling them already, but yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah, I will be in touch.
Yes.
That is awesome.
Yes. So the Black Woman Scroll is here, and I'm excited for this as well.
Yes.
So I have to give the book some time to live before this one takes all the attention. So, but a lot of people have hit me for the Black Woman Scroll because it means so much to them. So yeah.
Yes, I will be in touch for that. That is awesome. I want to remind everybody to tune into Lisa, Luncheon with Lisa, every Thursday, 7 to 8. This has been an absolutely wonderful time, and I definitely want to have you back. And one of the reasons especially is because I think what you're doing and the subject matter is what we need to kind of continue to talk about and feed into each other. So we would definitely have Nigel back on, but you all know that you can find me every Thursday, 7 to 8. And you can actually find Luncheon with Lisa. Luncheon with Lisa is actually housed on my online magazine as well, Dove Style Magazine. So you can go there. You can go to YouTube. So I expect to see you all next Thursday. I'm looking forward to it. And thank you so much, Nigel, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
See you all next Thursday.